According to the Book of Jubilees, the oppression of the Israelites in Egypt is not just a historical event or political conflict, but part of a larger spiritual battle between the forces of good and evil. In this context, Mastema, a character often seen as a manifestation of Satan, plays a significant role. He, along with his evil spirits, actively hardens Pharaoh's heart, refusing the pleas of the Israelites and intensifying their oppression. Not only does Pharaoh become hardened, but Mastema and his army incite the Egyptians to treat the Israelites with increasing cruelty, aiming to test their faith, sow doubts, and potentially lead them to abandon their belief in God. Jubilees 48:9 states, "And the leader of Mastema arose against them, desiring to destroy them with hard labor and cause them to forsake their faith in God." Thus, the Book of Jubilees reveals that behind the oppression the Israelites suffered, it was not just the will of a mortal king, but a deep, dark plot to hinder God's plan of salvation. This battle is cosmic, with each event reflecting the ongoing confrontation. And the Lord brought the plagues upon Egypt not only to judge Pharaoh, but to show that the gods of Egypt are nothing before him. Jubilees 48:11. Moreover, Mastema, the leader of the evil spirits, and his followers are also believed to be manipulating Pharaoh and the Egyptians, causing them to grow increasingly hard-hearted and oppress the Israelites more brutally. But despite all the efforts of the dark forces, God's power always prevails, gradually bringing his people closer to their liberation. Thus, Jubilee shows that the confrontation in Egypt was not just a political struggle, but part of a long-standing spiritual battle between light and darkness. In the book of Exodus, the giving of the law to Moses on Mount Sinai is seen as a significant event where God directly communicates his commandments to the Israelites. However, in Jubilees, the law is not newly created at that moment, but has been recorded on the heavenly tablets since before the world was created. According to Jubilees, angels and even the patriarchs such as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had known and kept the law long before Moses received it on Mount Sinai. This shows that the law was not just for the Israelites during Moses' time, but part of the cosmic order, an eternal code for all generations, both human and angelic. And the law and the testimony were established and recorded on the heavenly tablets before the world was created to guide every generation of the children of Israel. Jubilees 6:17. Thus in Jubilees, Moses' role was not to create the law, but to transmit the law that had already existed eternally. The giving of the law on Mount Sinai was merely the official proclamation of a law that had existed in the heavenly realm. This perspective expands the meaning of the law. It is not just a religious code for one nation, but an inseparable part of God's eternal plan, a connection between heaven and earth, between humanity and the divine realm. One of the most unique contributions of Jubilees is its emphasis on the sacred calendar, or cosmic calendar, as an inseparable part of the law of Moses. While the traditional Bible mentions holidays, the Sabbath, and the year of Jubilee, Jubilees emphasizes that keeping the proper time according to the sacred calendar is essential for following God's will. According to Jubilees, the lunar calendar is inaccurate and prone to causing holidays and Sabbaths to be observed at the wrong times. Instead, the book affirms the solar calendar, with 364 days in a year, as the correct way of measuring time, established by God. And the Lord said to Moses, "Write down for the children of Israel the law of the Sabbath and the festivals, For these times were appointed on the heavenly tablets, and you must keep them accurately, lest you fall into error. Jubilees 5:2. In summary, keeping the correct time in worship according to Jubilees is not just a duty, but a sacred act in harmony with the cosmic order, helping humanity live in alignment with God's will. In Jubilees, Moses' law is not just a set of rules for Israel, but is described as an eternal law, beyond time and space, governing both heaven and earth. According to this view, the law given to Moses on Mount Sinai was not something new, but had already been recorded on the heavenly tablets since the dawn of creation, and even the angels in heaven kept it. Jubilees emphasizes that laws like observing the Sabbath and festivals are not only duties for humans, but are divine standards practiced by angels. This highlights the universality and eternity of God's law, not limited to one nation or a specific historical period. One passage in the book says, "And the law given to Moses on Mount Sinai is eternal. It will be kept in heaven and on earth. The angels keep the Sabbath, and the righteous will keep these commandments forever." Jubilees 50:13. Thus, the book conveys a strong message that keeping the law is not just a moral act, but part of the universal divine order that connects the physical world with the spiritual realm. Moses' law, according to Jubilees, is the sacred bond between humanity, the angels, and God, a system operating according to the righteousness and harmony set from the very beginning of time. In Jubilees, the future of Israel is not random or unpredictable, but has been predetermined in the divine plan, clearly recorded on the heavenly tablets from the beginning of time. Every event in history, from the fall, exile, to the final restoration, is prophesied and occurs according to God's timetable. The book describes a sacred timeline where every major event of Israel, including rebellion and ultimate redemption, is arranged. Nothing happens by chance. Everything follows the divine plan of God. This helps the reader see the bigger picture. Servants but are active agents of God's judgment, ensuring His will is carried out in heaven and on earth. As the final period approaches, Jubilees describes how God's angels will be sent to separate the righteous from the wicked, gathering those faithful to God's commandments. This is not just a judgment, but a spiritual battle, where the forces of good and evil confront each other directly. One vivid image is that God's angel will bind Matima, the leader of the evil spirits, often associated with Satan, and throw him into the abyss, where he will remain until the final judgment. Jubilees 23:29 records, "And the Lord will send his angels to gather the chosen ones, and they will bind the prince of the evil spirits, casting him into the abyss until the time of judgment when he will be destroyed forever." Unlike the general descriptions in the traditional Bible, Jubilees provides a clear and detailed picture of the role of angels in the final battle between good and evil. Their actions are not just symbolic but are concrete steps in restoring the divine order and bringing the world back under God's rule. Thus, the book not only helps the reader understand the mechanism of judgment, but also strengthens the belief in the ultimate triumph of light over darkness.